The story follows an under-recognized employee whose boss spots her driving a luxury company car she technically should not have yet, or at least that's what everyone assumes. This one question opens a chain of events: jealousy, corporate politics, hidden truths, unexpected loyalty, and a twist that completely transforms her life and status. The story unfolds through rising tension, emotional pressure, psychological battles, and a final empowerment moment that leaves the viewer breathless. She never imagined that one simple question could rearrange the entire map of her life. She was standing in the company parking lot, keys in her hand, mind full of the day's work, when her boss walked toward her with that familiar look, half authority, half suspicion. She could sense it from a distance, the kind of energy that fills the air before a storm. The luxury car beside her gleamed under the fading sun, its metallic body catching every fragment of light like it was made to be noticed. She had been trying to leave quietly, but quiet wasn't something life ever allowed her. Her boss stopped just a few feet away, his eyes fixed on the car, as if it didn't belong in that parking lot. Or more specifically, like it didn't belong beside her. He didn't greet her. He didn't smile. He simply asked, "Is this company property? And if it is, how exactly did you get assigned this level of vehicle?" His words were sharp but coated in politeness, a dangerous blend. The kind that is never really about the question, but about everything behind it. She looked at him, trying to understand what he really wanted to know. Was it curiosity? Jealousy? Control? Or was it something much deeper? Her heartbeat felt louder than the wind. She wasn't afraid, but she was tired. Tired of proving. Tired of explaining. Tired of pretending that she hadn't worked twice as hard for half the recognition. She took a slow breath and answered calmly, "Yes, it's a company car." But she didn't explain further. Her silence bothered him. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened. The truth was simple, but she had learned that sometimes people don't want the truth itself. They want the version of it that fits their assumptions. He circled the car like a detective examining evidence. "This model is assigned to upper management only," he said, keeping his tone neutral but his eyes direct. "And, as far as I remember, you're not on that tier." She felt the sting of those words, but she didn't let it show. What he didn't know was that her world had been shifting behind the scenes, quietly, silently, almost invisibly. She had been working on a project that wasn't just another task. It was a project that carried weight, responsibility, and consequences far beyond regular assignments. But office rumors travel faster than facts, and in silence, they grow sharper. He stood still, waiting for her to defend herself. But she didn't. She simply locked the car and said, "I understand your concern." Her calmness unsettled him even more than any explanation would have. People expect panic when they hold power. But she refused to give him that satisfaction. Inside the building, she could feel the whispers. Her colleagues paused their conversations when she walked by. Some looked impressed. Some looked threatened. Some looked painfully confused. But all of them looked. Even those who never noticed her before suddenly cared about the details of her life. By the time she reached her floor, the story had already traveled. She saw the eyes. She heard the half-sentences. How did she, who approved, but she's never. Someone must have. The office thrived on assumptions. And assumptions were a currency more powerful than truth. Her boss appeared at her office door a few minutes later, knocking lightly, but with a kind of knock that doesn't wait for permission. He stepped in, closed the door behind him, and folded his arms. "I'm going to ask this directly," he said. "Did someone authorize that car without proper documentation? Because if there's any kind of special arrangement or miscommunication, I need to know before this becomes an issue." She stared at him for a moment. He wasn't asking because he cared about regulations. He wasn't asking because he was confused. He was asking because the idea of her having access to something so valuable didn't fit in the framework of who he believed she was. The quiet employee. The consistent performer. The one who never complained. The one who worked late, showed up early, and never crossed the invisible line of ambition he thought she should stay behind. Instead of answering his new question, she asked one of her own. "Why does it bother you so much?" He wasn't expecting that. His eyes shifted slightly, searching for an answer he couldn't say out loud. After a pause, he replied, "Because things like this come with consequences. And I don't want you to get caught in something you don't understand." But she did understand. Better than he thought. She leaned back in her chair, her voice steady. "If you're worried about me, don't be. Everything is exactly how it's supposed to be." That only added fuel to his confusion. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, I don't need riddles. Just tell me, did someone inside upper management arrange this for you?" She didn't react. Not a blink. Not a muscle. Silence can be louder than truth. He sighed, frustrated. "Fine. I'll investigate it myself." After he left her office, she looked at the closed door and let out a slow exhale. Not because she was scared, but because she knew this was only the beginning. Once someone in power feels threatened, the entire structure around them starts shifting. She wasn't sure how long it would take before the story reached the executive floor, but she knew it would. And when it did, things would start to fall into place, exactly as they were meant to. Later that evening, as she drove the luxury car out of the parking lot again, she saw her boss watching from his window. Arms crossed, eyes narrowed, mind racing. He wasn't just suspicious now. He was uncomfortable. And people only feel uncomfortable when something challenges the hierarchy they've built around themselves. She drove away, knowing very well that tomorrow would bring new questions, new tension, and new hidden motives rising to the surface. What she didn't know was that within just a few days, this single question about her car wouldn't just disrupt the office. It would pull her into a chain of events that would shake her entire world, destroy old loyalties, reveal buried truths, and open doors she never imagined she'd walk through. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was the beginning of her transformation. And no one, not even her boss, was ready for what would unfold next. The next morning didn't begin like any ordinary day. There was a kind of heaviness in the air, a quiet tension that floated through the building like an invisible fog. She could sense it the moment she stepped into the lobby. Conversations paused as she passed by. People didn't whisper anymore. They simply stared. Not with curiosity this time, but with anticipation. As if the entire office had collectively decided that something big was about to happen, and she was the center of it. She walked toward the elevators with calm, deliberate steps. Calmness wasn't a performance. It was the only thing she had learned to master in places where noise was used as a weapon. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside. Two colleagues who had been speaking animatedly fell silent the moment she entered, their eyes shifting between her and the elevator buttons as if they were unsure whether they should stand with her or step out. She didn't acknowledge them. Silence once again did the work. When the doors opened on her floor, she saw her boss standing near the glass meeting room, talking to someone from upper management. The executive's face was unreadable, polished with years of experience in hiding reactions. Her boss, on the other hand, looked restless. His eyes flicked toward her as she approached, but he quickly looked away, pretending to refocus on the conversation. She placed her bag on her desk and powered up her computer, trying to settle into the day, but she barely touched the keyboard before her office phone rang. Her boss. "I need you in the conference room now." No explanation. No detail. Just the authority in his voice pressing on her like a weight. She walked into the room, and he shut the door behind her. He didn't sit down. He didn't gesture for her to sit. Instead, he remained standing near the large window, overlooking the city, like someone who was preparing himself for a confrontation he hadn't planned. "There's been a development," he began. "Upper management has been informed about the car." She stayed silent. Not out of fear, out of principle. Let him talk. He turned around, crossing his arms. "They want to know how you got approval. And I want you to tell me before they start digging deeper." The tone of his voice had shifted. Less suspicion. More desperation. Authority, when shaken, starts sounding like begging wrapped in commands. She met his eyes. Everything was done through the correct channels. "That's not enough," he snapped. "You know how this company works. You can't just say things are correct. I need clarity. Why would they assign that vehicle to you?" His frustration wasn't about the car. It was about control slipping from his hands, inch by inch. The realization that something happened without his knowledge, that someone above him might trust her more than him, was disrupting his carefully crafted image of power. She spoke calmly. I didn't request it. I didn't push for it. I simply received confirmation, and I followed the procedure. His eyebrows furrowed. So someone approved it for you intentionally? She didn't answer, and that silence hit him harder than any explanation ever could. Because a silence this confident meant only one thing. She wasn't afraid of what the truth would bring. Before he could continue, a knock sounded at the door. The same executive from earlier walked in, composed, firm, and carrying a presence that shifted the entire mood of the room. Her boss straightened immediately, his posture changing like a student caught misbehaving. The executive looked directly at her. I need both of you in the boardroom. Her boss swallowed hard. He knew this wasn't a casual request. This was the kind of meeting where careers either climbed or collapsed. They followed the executive down the hallway. Every eye in the office tracked them like they were characters in a story unfolding live. When they entered the boardroom, several members of senior leadership were already seated, the long table polished to perfection, the atmosphere thick with expectation. The executive gestured for her to sit. Her boss sat as well, but his shoulders were tense, hands clasped tightly on the table. One of the senior board members spoke first. We've been reviewing internal allocations and noticed an anomaly involving a luxury vehicle assigned outside standard management tiers. Her boss jumped in quickly. Yes, I was just about to address that. There seems to be some confusion about how she... Let her speak. The board member interrupted gently but firmly. Her boss froze. She looked around the table, her voice steady. The authorization came directly from the Strategic Projects Division. I was assigned to lead a confidential initiative that required mobility, privacy, and rapid response. The vehicle was part of that assignment. A silence spread across the room. Some eyebrows raised. Some expressions softened. The board members exchanged glances, and she could see it, recognition. They knew the division she mentioned. They knew what it meant. Her boss, however, looked blindsided. The board member nodded. We received confirmation from Strategic Projects late last night. Your role is now officially under review for elevation once the initiative moves to the next phase. Her boss blinked. Elevation? As in promotion? The board member didn't look at him. He looked at her. Her performance metrics have been exceptional for years, but her contributions have consistently been overshadowed. This assignment was meant to correct that. She was selected for a reason. Her boss's face drained of color. Everything he thought he controlled was slipping beyond his reach. The executive spoke next, directing his words at her boss. You should have been aware of her assignment. But somehow you weren't. That's concerning. Her boss stuttered. I wasn't informed. This isn't how. It's how it is now, the executive said calmly. We're restructuring oversight for certain departments. Her role may shift accordingly. Her boss looked like the floor had been pulled from beneath him. His entire identity, built on hierarchy and power, was being quietly dismantled in front of him. The meeting concluded with subtle nods and short acknowledgments. As she stood to leave, the board member said, We expect you to continue your work with full autonomy. If anything or anyone obstructs your progress, you report directly to us. Her boss heard every word. She stepped out of the boardroom, the weight of the moment settling, and yet, she felt lighter than she had in years. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply walked with the same calm she had walked in with. But now, the entire floor saw her differently. Her colleagues didn't whisper anymore. They stared in disbelief. Her boss followed her out moments later, his face pale, his confidence shattered. He approached her, but the hesitation in his steps was unmistakable. Why didn't you tell me? He asked softly, almost pleading. She looked him in the eyes, steady, grounded. Because you never asked to understand, only to control. He had no answer for that. And for the first time since she joined this company, the balance of power shifted, not with noise, not with conflict, but with truth stepping out from the shadows. She walked back to her office, knowing that this wasn't the end of the journey. Not even the middle. This was the moment where her story stopped being about survival and started becoming about rise. Her new chapter had already begun. And nobody, not fear, not doubt,